Hey guys, tonight we begin a very special journey. Not yours exactly, well, kind of. Tonight you're going to drift through time and across oceans, through marketplaces and monasteries, all in the humble shape of a lost Viking nail. You're cold iron. You're sharp at the tip, just a little bent from years of service. And you begin your night stuffed inside the wooden hull of a Viking longship, wedged between some herring barrels and a crate of horned helmets. Although between us, historians agree the horns were probably a myth. But try telling that to the decorative carver who left you here. The air smells like old sweat, salt water and dried seaweed. Above, sailors grunt in a language full of long vowels and dramatic pauses. The ship rocks as if it's had too much to drink, and you, poor thing, are completely forgotten. No one mentions you. No one looks for you. A nail among hundreds. A piece of iron with a history, but no memory. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from tonight? What time is it where you are now? Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The wood around you creaks. The ship's hold moves like a sleeping lung. You're just a nail, but even nails can sense when the world is about to turn upside down. An unexpected wave approaches. The ropes come loose. A drum of fermented fish falls with a crash. Suddenly, you are free. A loose nail is a hazard, carpenters would say. But in this case, it is only the beginning of a gloriously irrelevant adventure. The ship tilts, the world spins, and you slide slowly through a crack in the hold floor. First, a creak, then silence, and then splash. The sea is cold, really cold. Like you're going to lose your fingers cold, if you were someone with fingers. You sink slowly, heavier than foam and more lost than anything that ever existed. The water around you vibrates with distant calls, perhaps from other Viking ships cruising the fjords. Or maybe it's just the belly of a whale. Historians still debate whether these ships followed the sounds of birds or the currents of whales to navigate. But you at this moment don't sail, you plummet. Curious little fish swim past you, but ignore them. A piece of iron isn't exactly a feast. You reach the bottom, resting among shells and algae with complicated names. You don't think, because, well, you're a nail. But if you did, you might wonder how your existence came to be like this. Hours pass, or days. Time is a very human concept. The current begins to shift. You can feel it even through the mud. Something larger is approaching, a slow, deliberate movement, with eyes as wide as they are useless. An Atlantic cod. He approaches without ceremony. His huge snout sniffs you. Smelling in the sea is more a matter of pressure than of nose. And then, without glamour or warning, gulp. You enter the darkness again, this time damp and pulsating. The stomach of a fish, warmer than the sea, less welcoming than the hold of a ship. The cod keeps swimming. Where to? Maybe to Iceland. Maybe just away from the seagulls. But one thing is certain. Its journey is just beginning. You didn't expect to experience this, but then again you're a nail. Expecting things isn't exactly your main job. Inside the cod, everything is damp, dark, and fairly quiet. Every now and then there's a wet grunt or a gurgling noise, but other than that, it's just eternity flashing by in tones of gastric juice. You slowly turn with each movement of the fish. Cod is not particularly fast, but it is determined. Historians still debate whether the Vikings considered cod an elite food or just an unglamorous winter meat. Either way, this one seems very interested in getting somewhere. You remain there for days or perhaps only hours. After all, inside a fish's stomach, time is useless. Everything is liquid and digestive. You hear distant sounds, waves crashing against rocks, seagulls calling out indignantly, and every now and then human voices. A net approaches. With a sudden jerk and a final swirl of water, the cod is caught. You feel everything vibrate as it rises to the surface, rattling around in a tangle of ropes, smaller fish and maybe a shoe. Light. You see light again, pale and cold as the Icelandic sky. Men speak in a dialect that mixes runes with pragmatism. Someone mentions that the fishing was good. Another grumbles that he forgot his lunch. And then, without warning, you are thrown with the cod into a soggy wooden bucket. Welcome to the market. The smell is overwhelming. Imagine a mix of raw fish, melted ice, and fermented onions. Add a hint of wet wool and old wood, and you have the perfect scent to ward off any sensitive soul. You slip into the bottom of the bucket as vendors shout about discounts on offal and partially rotted shark pieces, a local delicacy they proudly claim. From your damp corner, you watch the market. Stalls covered in patchwork fabrics sell everything from soaps made from whale fat to musical instruments that make sounds that even seals don't like. Life pulses around you in a slow but steady rhythm. A stray dog stops beside him and barks at a display case full of bread. A group of children run barefoot through the frozen mud. One of them, with spiky red hair and a determined expression, approaches the bucket. She reaches in with the courage of someone who has seen worse. She stirs the fish. She touches you. And then, to your complete surprise, she smiles. "Look," she says in Old Icelandic. "It's a magic nail. You have been promoted." She runs with you in her hands as if she had found a lost amulet. The other children surround her, curious. "It will protect our food from the thieving elves," someone says. And you, of course, are placed with great ceremony in the center of a circle made of stones among slices of dry bread and sour cheese. Interestingly, there are even records in medieval Norse texts about the fear of house elves, creatures that supposedly invaded homes and stole food. Some believed that iron kept them away. Others thought it was just an excuse to hide their own appetite. You stand there for hours, maybe days, exposed to the rain, the wind, and the childish imagination. Children make up stories about you. One says you came from a cursed ship. Another insists you were used by giants to nail snow to the ground. It makes no sense at all, but no one seems to care. And then, like everything else in your existence, comes the moment of the next unexpected turn. During a particularly wild game involving snow, a makeshift sled, and an angry duck, you are kicked off your feet, flying in a graceful, silent arc until you land with a small clunk among the cobblestones of the main street. The red-haired child runs towards you, but stops before reaching you. A man with a thick beard and a distracted look passes by, trips over you, mumbles something unintelligible and, without realizing it, kicks you straight into a blacksmith's workshop. Once more the light changes. Now it is golden, warm and vibrant, filled with soot particles in the air. Tools clink, hammers bang, and you settle discreetly among iron filings. And real nails, I mean officially used nails. Your time as an anti-elf charm is over. Now you'll be just another piece of metal in a place where heat rules and iron obeys. The blacksmith's workshop breathes in warm, rhythmic puffs. The air here is thick, almost chewy, and smells of burnt coal, old sweat, and turnip soup, for some reason. You're there among metal shards, feeling the heat radiate from the brazier, as if the sun itself had decided to take a nap in the corner of the room. Hammering sounds echo with a mesmerizing cadence. Each blow on the red-hot iron sends tiny sparks dancing across the floor, some coming dangerously close to you. One of them lands on your side and evaporates with that lazy. You don't react. After all, you're a nail. Reactions are a luxury for those who have a nervous system. The blacksmith is a large man with thick arms and shaggy hair, tied back with a ribbon made of cloth and regrets. He sings as he works, a song without lyrics that seems to have been invented on the spur of the moment. Literally. The melody drags on, full of long, off-key notes. You're beginning to understand why elves don't frequent this place. For hours, maybe days, you watch the workflow. Short swords, hooks, horseshoes, hinges. Nothing too glorious, but all sturdy. Rumor has it, among the other hunks of iron, that a sword made here was used in a fight between two brothers over a beehive. Historians still debate whether Viking smiths were artists or just practical men with a flair for aesthetic brawling. The answer, as always, is probably both. At one point, the blacksmith looks through an old drawer full of nails and screws. He's looking for something specific. He sees you. He grabs you. He spins you around in his thick fingers. For a brief moment, you think you're finally going to be useful. But he frowns, makes a disapproving sound, and returns you to the drawer. You failed the test. Too thick, too crooked, maybe just unlucky. Like that day's barley bread, which fell on the floor 3 times before it was accepted as breakfast. You are forgotten there, again, until a customer walks in. He is thin, dressed in simple clothes and with an accent from the southern lands. He wants to buy spearheads and a new buckle for his cloak. The blacksmith begins to prepare the order, and between hammering and grumbling, he accidentally knocks over a small box. Several metal objects fall out, including you. You roll slowly across the floor, making an almost sympathetic noise. Plim, plim, plug. The customer looks at you. He crouches down. He picks you up with curiosity. Can I have that one too? The blacksmith raises an eyebrow. That one, bah, take it, it's just a nail. But it's not just a nail, you are the nail. And now he's going to travel again. The man puts you in his pocket. Dark again, of course. But it smells different now. Leather, hay and maybe old goat cheese. He walks along the snow-covered trails, his steps careful. With each step you knock against coins, crumbs and a wooden button. You make a strange but comforting chorus. At night, he sleeps in an inn, where the pillow seems to be made of stale bread. In the morning, he puts on his boots and forgets you inside. Now you are a lost nail inside a boot, the warmest and smelliest place on your journey so far. The days pass with jolts and bumps. The boot goes from market to market, from village to village, and you are there inside, getting to know the world through the steps of others. You hear a woman shouting out prices for reindeer milk. You hear a child asking why adults buy garlic potions. And one day, during a daring stumble, you escape from your boot, flying in an arc and bouncing like an iron ladybug, and straight into a shallow stream. The water greets you with a cold sigh. You descend to the bottom, now covered in smooth stones and green moss. It is then that a gentle current slowly carries you along, as if to say, "Come on, there is still more world out there." The stream sings softly as it carries you along. You spin, bump against small rocks, settle, let go and go again. It's like being on a slow but steady toboggan ride propelled by nature's patience. Sunlight dances through leaves above the water, creating shimmering patterns that extend down to the bed, where you glide like a reluctant passenger. Historians still debate whether the Vikings saw rivers as sacred paths or merely practical routes for transporting barrels of herring. But as you now drift along, you understand that there is something almost meditative about being carried along unhurriedly, without choice, and with no clear destination. The life of a Capuchin, it seems, is much like that of a Stoic philosopher. After hours or days, you know it's time to catch a fish. The current slows down. The bed widens. You get closer to the bank and the stream becomes almost a lake, lazy and mirror-like. That's where you pull over. Stay. Wait. Until a hand arrives. Human hands are always a surprise to you. Some are rough and strong. Others are small and smooth. This one is firm, covered in small scars and practical wisdom. A sculptor, or almost. He's collecting specific stones, smooth, round, with just the right texture. He's going to turn them into something more. Something decorative or perhaps ritualistic. Historians still debate the true purpose of the soapstone carvings found in Saxon villages, whether they were toys, amulets, or simply artistic expression by those with free time and good tools. You are caught along with some of these stones. Unbeknownst to you, he takes you to his simple workshop, where tools are scattered among scraps of wood, shavings and bowls of dried porridge. He whistles a tune that seems designed to scare away mice, and it works. Not a mouse in sight at Isai. His desk under the late afternoon light, he begins to carve one of the stones. With precise hands, he transforms an amorphous block into a hippopotamus, yes, a hippopotamus, an animal he has never seen in person, but he has heard stories about it from travelers from the south. They say they live where the water boils, and men wear golden masks. For him, the hippopotamus is a symbol of power, patience, and, according to his daughter, cuteness. During the process, he looks for a thinner metal tool. He can't find one. He sighs. He searches through the things and finds you. He holds you between his fingers. He studies your curved body, your still sharp tip, your dull shine. He chuckles and uses you to mark details on the hippo's back. Tiny lines, patterns, textures. You're useful again, at least for a few minutes, then he leaves you on the table. And there you stay, watching. The sculptor's daughter enters. She brings bread. She brings stories. She says she heard a woman say that nails may contain ancient spirits, that it might be dangerous to leave them on the table. The man smiles. If this one has a spirit inside, it's very quiet. She nods. Or maybe I'm just waiting. You are then carefully placed in a small clay container, a sort of strange object box, as they call it. Inside you find a piece of green glass, an ivory button, and a musty-smelling Greek coin. At night the house is quiet, silent, except for the occasional sound of the wind rattling the windows or an owl arguing with another owl on the roof. You don't mind. The clay container is cozy, like a nest. But like every calm on this crooked journey, it also has an end. One morning, an unexpected visitor arrives at the house. A man dressed in heavy clothes, leather boots, and a hat that looks like an overturned platter. He is buying items to take to the Saxon King's Hall, items that are exotic and symbolically important. The stone hippopotamus is chosen. The daughter insists on sending along that strange nail just in case. The man smiles without understanding, but he accepts. You are then wrapped in a linen cloth. The cloth smells of hay and has a faint hint of turnip soup. And so begins another part of the journey, inside a wooden box next to an animal sculpture that only exists in the dreams of the people of the north. The carriage jolts along dirt roads. It rolls through forests, fields, villages that all look the same, at least to a nail, until you reach your destination, a large banquet hall, a place where men talk loudly, laughter echoes, and the ceiling seems to want to tell stories all by itself. You are placed with the hippopotamus right in the center of the large table. Among jugs of mead, plates of smoked meat, cheeses of dubious origin, and breads that could be used as weapons, you rest. No one notices you, but everyone eats, toasts, and drops things near you, and you, as always, watch, silently, firmly. The banquet hall is a spectacle of excess. The windows are few, high, and covered with thick furs that block out the cold and any attempt at good taste. The ceiling is high and smoky. Candles drip wax from crooked holders, and torches flicker lazily, illuminating the space with that yellowish light that says, "This is going to give me a headache tomorrow morning." You are there, on the central table, surrounded by enormous plates, clay bowls, and pieces of meat that still look like they are arguing with whoever roasted them. Beside you lies the soapstone hippopotamus, already adorned with a red ribbon and a small amulet tied around its neck. It is the sculptor's gift to the Jarl, or so they say. The party is in full swing. Glasses are clinking, voices are overlapping, and someone has already begun to recite improvised epic poems. Listening carefully, you realize that the poem tells of a battle against an army of angry swans. It is unclear whether this is humor, exaggeration, or whether such a war actually took place. Historians still debate the existence of ritual battles involving waterfowl among certain northern tribes. You stand motionless in the center of the table, feeling the vibrations of every fist bump, every uncontrolled laugh, every heavy footstep on the wooden floor. A Viking feast was less a dinner and more an edible earthquake. Someone notices the hippopotamus. "What's that?" asks a man with a parted mustache, clearly on his fourth or fifth glass of mead. "It's an offering," another replies, laughing. "Or maybe a new sacred animal. Who knows? Let's ask the priest." And so begins a discussion, part serious, part drunken, about the symbolism of animals that no one knows about. Someone suggests that the hippopotamus represents fertility. Another, more skeptical, says that it looks like a wet pig, and that perhaps it is a sign of coming famine. You, next to the confusion, remain firm. Until, of course, someone bumps into the table. The impact is enough to launch you dramatically and silently straight into one of the guests' plates. And from that plate, a second bump throws you to the floor, where you bounce once, twice, 3 times, and under the table, you settle in among breadcrumbs, bits of onion skin, and a forgotten nut. It's not glamorous, but it's safe. At least for now. Hours pass. The party dies down. The sounds turn to murmurs, then snoring, then the echoing silence that only exists in large empty halls. You remain there under the table when an animal approaches. A horse, yes, a horse. Inside the hall it is not common. Not at that time, not at any time. But this horse seems to have escaped from the stables and taken advantage of a poorly closed door. He sniffs the ground, chews something invisible, and walks with that slow, destructive gait typical of domestic horses, and then in a perfect combination of bad luck and slight historical irony. He steps on you, or rather step on it almost at you. His hoof presses against your side, and you are shoved straight into the horse's mouth, along with a piece of hardened bread he found nearby. The chewing is loud, wet, and full of silent judgment. You are now inside a horse's mouth. The sensation is confusing. Your tongue moves like a nervous cushion, your teeth scrape, and your breath has that classic smell of sour hay mixed with old grass. And then when the horse tries to cough, you don't get swallowed, but you don't get spit out either. You lodge yourself under his tongue, like a secret. For the next few days, you live there. You see the world through the eyes of an animal. You walk through the hay. You hear conversations that were never meant for nails. You feel the rhythm of the gallops and the night sounds of the stables. The horse is well cared for. His owner is careful, sings to him, brushes his fur. A boy who dreams of being a warrior, but for now cleans manure and invents dialogues for the geese. You learn to recognize voices. The jarls, the cooks, and the old warrior who says he dreams every night of a talking tree. In one of these conversations, the boy mentions that his horse seems more thoughtful lately. Like it knows things, he says. Maybe he does know. After all, he carries a nail under his tongue, a nail that has seen the world, heard about elves, sunk into stomachs and become a sculpture marker, and that's only half of the story. You're there, still hidden beneath the horse's tongue. With every movement of the jaw, every bite of wet hay or oats, you slowly swirl like a thought that can't be digested. It's not exactly comfortable, but like everything so far, it's temporary. The days repeat themselves. The horse wakes up, is brushed, fed, and taken to the field for training. He gallops, jumps over small obstacles, carries the young squire who insists on singing him songs about dragons and onions. Yes, onions. It's the kind of hymn that a 12-year-old boy composes with pride and lack of rhyme. You, as always, observe. Everything without eyes, feel without nerves, and listen without ears. But you are present, much more present than the soldiers who only pay attention to their swords. You feel the rhythm of life in that stable, the coming and going of the servants, the whispers of the girls, the shouts of the cooks, and sometimes even a cat that insists on sleeping in the barn, even though it is sneezed out every day. 1. Afternoon, during a longer ride, the horse gets spooked. A distant thunder. A crow that screams louder than necessary. It's unclear why, but he jumps up and takes off running. The boy almost falls. He manages to catch himself, but the fright leaves consequences. Among them a sudden shake of the head, and it is in this jolt that you escape. Launched by centrifugal force and accumulated saliva, you are thrown out of the horse's mouth with the elegance of an out-of-control rocket. The flight is short but intense. And you land, of course, and with a soft clink, right in the corner of the village's central courtyard. You're back on the ground, cold, hard, uneven, but open, free. For a few hours, no one notices you. The ground is covered in gravel and dry leaves. A crow walks by, cocks its head, and decides you are inedible. A dog sniffs, sneezes, and walks away. It is the classic tranquility of someone forgotten by the world, but watching it pass by. Then, as night falls, one of the guards, a tall, impatient, and very bored man, walks past you. He's sweeping the floor. Yes, with a straw broom. Nothing. Modern, nothing subtle. The broom pushes you into a corner, and in that corner you find something familiar. Old wood, carved, cracked. It's the throne. Not the throne of the king, but of the local jarl. A ceremonial seat, more decorative than practical. A place where speeches are made, complaints are heard, and ceremonial meals are tediously long. At the base of the throne, there is a crack. Small, discreet, a place where the wood has given way, over time perhaps from humidity, perhaps from the excessive weight of bad decisions, and it is into this crack that you slide. Now you're stuck deep in a throne, invisible, forgotten, but absurdly well positioned to hear absolutely everything. For weeks, perhaps months, you sit in on important meetings. The Jarl sits, leans back, sighs, and talks. We need more salmon. The flour tax is angering bakers. My daughter wants to marry a merchant, and you listen. You always listen. It's a position of power, albeit a passive one, a spying nail, a silent confidant. And strangely, you get to know those around you. The cook who complains about cold joints, the scribe who makes up words when he forgets his Latin, and the old counselor who once let slip that he can't swim, information no one asked for. Time here is made of silences, of small decisions, of grunts and stretches. Historians still debate whether Viking thrones had secret compartments used to hide sacred objects or encrypted messages. Most believe they did not. But you are here and no one can take you away, so who knows, until one stormy night the wind blows hard enough to push open the hall door. Leaves blow in. Lightning illuminates the ceiling. And the Jarl, as he sits down abruptly, causes one of the legs of the throne to give way slightly. The structure creaks. You hear the sound of the wood groaning, and you feel it. Yes, you feel it when everything starts to tilt. With a glorious crash, the throne topples. The Jarl falls. The advisor screams. The cook drops the soup. And you escape through the gaping crack, sliding back to the floor like a prisoner who has waited for the right night. And so the world opens another door for you. The fall was graceful, or at least silent. You roll slowly across the stone floor of the hall as everyone rushes to help the Jarl, who now sits, legs spread, staring at the fallen throne like someone who has just been betrayed by an old wooden friend. You, of course, are not noticed. Chaos always provides good opportunities for small and metal objects to disappear with dignity. After a few minutes, the guards lift the throne back up with the same care normally reserved for sick chickens. The Jarl grumbles, says that it was a sign, perhaps from the gods. Someone suggests nailing the base with more iron. Another suggests changing thrones. Nobody agrees on anything. Meanwhile, a boot passes by. Big, heavy, and very poorly tied. You are pushed forward with a casual and unexpected kick, and once again you are twirling out through the half-open door of the salon. The outside world greets you with cold wind and a very clear sense that your day is not over yet. The kick sends you straight into a side alley of the village, a dimly lit corner where the walls are made of crooked stone and the cats hold important nighttime meetings. You slip into a pile of straw, a makeshift hiding place but effective, and a few hours later a new figure appears, a merchant. He is thin, with a well-groomed beard and curious eyes. He is looking for a dry place to put his boots. He steps on the straw, feels something hard. Awesnan, and without thinking much, picks you up. A good nail. It should be good enough to close a box. Ah, the ironies of life. You who were once a magical amulet, a sculptor's tool, and a horse's oral guest, are about to be a spare part in an old wooden box. But no. The merchant changes his mind. He notices your shape, your curved tip, your unusual appearance. He puts you in his pocket and takes you with him. And there begins another journey. The road is long, covered in mud and snow. The merchant's wooden cart creaks like an old man with arthritis. He walks slowly, talking to himself, counting coins and humming songs he probably invented just to stave off boredom. You swing it in your pocket with each step, along with a bone die, a carved spoon, and a small blue stone. Each jolt is like a poorly coordinated dance, but you've gotten used to less. The landscape changes. The village is left behind, hills, dry trees, scattered flocks appear. A grey sky accompanies everything, like a roof of dirty wool stretched by lazy gods. After 3 days, the merchant arrives at a new town. It is not large, but it has towers and chimneys, and most importantly, a lively market. People sell everything. Dried fruit, embroidered fabrics, garlic-scented perfumes, and handwritten books with more mistakes than words. He finds a simple inn and goes up to his room. There, after having dined on something that vaguely resembles turnip porridge and hope, he begins to dismantle the boot that bothers him. And while he is tidying it up, you slip out of his pocket, It falls straight to the ground, but this time, instead of landing under a bed or behind a chest, you bounce, yes, again, and enter through a crack in the floor. A tiny gap which takes you beneath the wooden floorboards. Downstairs, it's dark, damp, and filled with muffled voices coming from upstairs. The life of the inn pulses above your head. Guests discuss prices. Laughter erupts during dinner. The innkeeper sings to scare away rats. Everything continues. You, down there, meet new neighbors. A broken piece of spoon. A hair clip. A missing coat button. You don't talk, of course, but there's a silent camaraderie between lost objects. And then days later, the inn burns down. Calm down. It's not dramatic. More smoke than flames. Someone knocked over a candle. Guests run out screaming, throwing buckets of water everywhere. The floor shakes. A board gives way. And through the wreckage, you are thrown back into the street. Still warm, still half covered. In ash, you find yourself in the middle of the road. No one pays attention. Everyone is busy saving rugs and pots, and you? You are free again. A boy runs past, steps on you, shouts a dramatic ouch, and instinctively kicks you. There you go, flying through the world again, until you fall. Plop into a puddle. Not just any puddle. A puddle in front of a stable. The water is shallow but thick. It smells of mud and horses and bad decisions. You sink slowly. The sky darkens, and you, for the first time in a long time, lie completely still. Maybe even more than usual, and in that stillness, an invisible thought crosses your mind. You have no legs, no voice, no definite purpose. But you have already gone further than many kings, and all this without saying a word. You are submerged. The puddle is shallow but thick, like a poorly seasoned winter soup. The light from the sky passes over it, almost as if it hesitates to touch this mixture of water, mud, straw, and the remains of old horseshoes. For a while, maybe hours, maybe days, you remain there, in the muffled silence of a world between the ground and nothingness. It's a kind of peace, not paradise, of course, but neither is it a codfish stomach or the sweaty sole of a boot. Here, sounds come filtered, as if the world were telling you half-hearted secrets. The creaking of carts, the clopping of horses, and an occasional voice shouting that the milk has gone sour faster than usual. And then, as always happens with you, something unexpected comes up. A boy, no more than 8, with crooked clothes and scraped knees from childhood, steps at the edge of the puddle. He's looking for something. A rock he's thrown, a ring he's lost, a reason not to go home. You don't know. But he sees you. His eyes narrow. His hand enters the water without hesitation, and then you feel the touch. Small, cool, but determined. Fingers, he lifts you up, examines you, grimaces. This looks like an old nail, he mutters aloud to no one. And like any child who finds a seemingly magical object, he decides to keep it. You are carefully placed inside a small leather bag hanging from his belt, among marbles, a blue feather and a piece of braided rope. In the days that follow, you live on his waist. You are taken to every corner of the village, which, by the way, is not small. There's a windmill that always seems about to collapse, a bridge that sings when someone passes over it, and a lady who sells cakes with so much honey that they've already captured bees. The boy has a routine made of discoveries. He climbs trees, chases chickens, watches adults argue with the cynical patience of someone who doesn't yet have to pay taxes, and you, in the middle of all this, are his talisman. He believes you bring good luck, that you were forged by a legendary warrior, that you fell from the sky, perhaps thrown by an unsuspecting giant. On a particularly busy afternoon, the boy takes part in a local game, a children's race around the barn with improvised obstacles, ropes, barrels, a particularly angry goat. In the midst of the confusion, the leather bag opens. And you, of course, fly. You bounce off the dirt floor, spin in the air like an iron ballerina, and land inside a basket. But not just any basket. It's a basket of dirty clothes being carried by a washerwoman who's hurrying towards the stream. And you, now among socks, tunics, and a dishcloth with suspicious stains, go along. The journey is short but full of swings. With each step the woman takes, you hear the wood of the basket creak, and then, with a weary sigh, she leaves everything beside the water. The washerwoman sits on a rock, dips her hands in the water and begins to sing. You are taken out along with your clothes, twisted inadvertently in the fabric of a tunic, and thrown with everything into the stream. Ah, the creek again. The current seems to recognize you. The way the water receives you, swirls around you, carries you without urgency. It's almost familiar. Historians still debate whether the Vikings saw rivers as sentient entities. Some accounts speak of offerings made to angry streams. If so, you may be a kind of gift in transit. You float slowly among leaves and pebbles until you are caught by a stronger current. This time, the river takes you far. At night, the water turns into a mirror. Above you, stars appear as uncertain dots. Clouds creep by, the wind blows, branches touch the surface, and every now and then a fish jumps out of nowhere, just to remind you that you are still in the realm of the living. And then, at dawn, the current carries you to a water wheel. It creaks and turns slowly. You are sucked into it, trapped between a sliver of wood and a crust of moss. The wheel turns. Slowly, you rise, like a passenger on a medieval water park ride. And at the top, of course, you are spat out. But not back to the river. You fly with dignity on an almost poetic trajectory until you fall into a small tool bucket forgotten next to a cabin. Hammer, pliers, tweezers, rope. You've found a new home. Temporary, of course. But for now, it's enough. The tool bucket is cold, metallic, and uncomfortably cramped, like sharing a room with 7 roommates and no fans. You lie there, leaning against a cracked-handled hammer, listening to the steady rustle of leaves in the forest around the cabin. The person who lives there is a carpenter. Solitary, methodical, with a way of walking that makes it seem like you're always thinking about 3 things at once. He speaks little, but whistle, all the time. Short, repetitive melodies, as if you were trying to convince yourself that you are still in the world. You observe your routine from inside the bucket. In the morning, he chops wood with slow, perfect movements. In the afternoon, he sands boards for hours, staring into space. And in the evening, he sits in silence with a piece of cheese, a cup of something warm, and a distant gaze. Historians still debate whether the isolated craftsmen of the Viking era were eccentric by choice or simply by geography. Either way, this man seems at peace with his isolation. And you, as always, observe the world around you without being part of it. Until one day he decides to fix a door. The hinge on the old cabin door is loose. He searches through the bucket for a firm, straight, reliable nail. And he finds you. He holds you between his fingers, turns you over, examines your tip. One side is slightly crooked, but nothing he can't fix. One tap with the hammer, and you're straight again. It's strange to be useful. He positions you in place, holds the hinge steady, and begins to hammer. Each blow echoes through the silent valley. The wood vibrates. You sink in. And for one glorious moment, you are doing exactly what you were made to do. But the moment doesn't last. On the 3rd blow, the wood splits. Not your fault, mind you. The door was rotten to the core. The carpenter sighs, removes you with the tip of his knife and sets you aside. Back in the bucket? No. This time, you go into a smaller box. The things that might one day be useful for something else. Box. You stay there for weeks. Time passes in silence. It rains outside. It's sunny. It rains again. The wood of the cabin creaks at night as if telling stories only to itself. And you, lying next to a washer, a broken nail, and a bent hook, adapt to the new silence. Until one morning, a visitor appears. It's rare. Very rare. But he arrives riding a small packhorse, wearing a heavy cloak and a wide hat. He speaks softly, with a southern accent. He brings coins, offers to trade. He's after lumber for frames, and perhaps old tools. The carpenter hesitates, but accepts the sale. And so the box of maybe useful things is delivered along with other knickknacks. You are now in a cart full of boards, nails, hinges, dried hides, balls of thread, and something that looks like a magic spoon, but it's just a spoon with too many holes in it. The road is long and full of bumps. The cart goes from village to village, selling objects, exchanging stories, leaving fragments of the past behind. You, at the bottom of the box, begin to get used to the swaying. Around you, conversations flow about harvests, fish prices, Local superstitions. In a coastal village, the merchant parks near a small warehouse. There he meets with a man who says he is building something for posterity. You don't know what that means, but it sounds important. Between coin exchanges and handshakes, the box you are in is sold in its entirety. Days later, you discover the destination, a small museum. Nothing grand, nothing with marble. Fear it's another adapted house, with wooden panels and display cases full of objects, with stories that only make sense to those who are no longer in a hurry. You are chosen by a young curator, with hair tied in braids and eyes always half closed. As if she were constantly trying to decipher an invisible enigma, she holds you with gloves, examines you with a magnifying glass. Viking nail, probably 9th century. Curious. Decorative. She hesitates. She places you on a small cushion inside a glass box and writes the sign. And there, with soft lighting and a soundtrack of Nordic flutes in the background, you become art. Visitors pass by you every day. Some read the sign and move on. Others take photos. One lady even said, "Imagine what this nail has seen." If she only knew. The days now follow at a pace of exposure. You are standing still, nothing new, but this time under a glass dome, in a room with a polished wooden floor, among objects ranging from ceremonial spoons to fossilized pieces of cloth. The museum smells of old paper, reheated coffee, and hushed anticipation. It's the kind of place where even the footsteps of visitors seem to whisper. From your cushion, you observe the world with the patience of someone who has been mistaken for a relic thrown into a stream and bitten indirectly by a horse. People pass by, stop and stare. Some frown, as if trying to guess the enigma you represent. Others shrug their shoulders, thinking that maybe you are just a nail. A child knocks on the window and asks if you can be used to build a toy castle. The mother laughs, and you, true to your purpose, do not react. The curator who found you, her name is Astrid. You heard her when she filled out the records, passes by you every day. She likes to talk to herself as she adjusts the pieces. Someday someone will figure out what exactly you were for, she says, as she wipes the display case with a blue cloth. Historians still debate whether decorative nails existed during the Viking period. Some argue that certain nails found in graves had ritualistic value. Others think they were just nails, and that history has only made them a mystery. As always, you prefer not to give your opinion. During a local festival, the museum receives more visitors than usual. A group of students arrive with notebooks, hurriedly taking notes. A boy in a red cap draws you as if you were a sword. Another ignores you completely, fascinated by a replica of a shield. You begin to notice that even among historical objects, there are hierarchies. Axes and helmets get more attention. Ceremonial bowls get longer looks. But there's something special about the ones who notice you. They're few, but they're the curious ones. The ones who see the enigma in small things. The ones who ask why instead of what for. And then one of these visitors stands out. He's young, thin, with crooked glasses, and a t-shirt written in a language you don't recognize. He walks, slowly reads all the signs, writes them down in a little brown notebook. When he reaches you, he stops for longer than usual. He reads the sign. He tilts his head. He takes 2 steps back. He looks, then he whispers, "You don't look just decorative." The phrase, said as a confidence, echoes in a strange way. In the museum shop, yes, there is always one, the boy buys a replica of himself. A mass-produced Viking-style nail, sold with a label that reads, "Inspired by a real artifact, origin unknown." The replica is made of light, poorly sanded iron and doesn't have half the charm, but the boy seems happy. He leaves the museum whistling, with the fake nail in his pocket and a bag containing a tourist map that he will clearly lose soon. You remain, motionless, watching. At night, the museum sleeps. The lights go out in sequence, like stars being extinguished one by one. The objects breathe a collective silence. And you, as always, settle into the calm. But something inside you, even if you don't know exactly what it is, feels that history is about to change again. And it changes. 2 months later, the museum closes for renovations. The pieces are carefully packed, labeled, and catalogued. A box is prepared for you. Cushion, glass, label. Everything goes together. The transport is slow and bumpy. You hear phrases like new exhibition wing, merger with Norwegian collection, and interactive display case. But none of that happens, because halfway along the road the truck carrying you stops in a village. A brake failure, a detour, a moment of distraction. The box you're in falls, slides, hits, and opens. You escape. No ceremony, no epic music, no audience. You fall onto the dirt road of a narrow road. The driver doesn't even notice. The box is picked up, but you're no longer in it. You stay there among pebbles and dry leaves until a cartwheel almost flattens you. But it doesn't flatten. You are thrown sideways off the road. And so without sound, without applause, you begin again. Again. The road is silent. There you are, lying in the cold earth among exposed roots, fragments of gravel, and the occasional goat poop, which, considering your history, is already a friendly environment. The box that carried you is gone. The museum has moved on without you, and you just stayed. The ground here is damp but firm, a place where footsteps echo with a certain lazy rhythm, and the wind blows through the trees like an old man telling stories softly. For the first few days, no one sees you. You are covered by a leaf, then another, and later by a chewed-up piece of paper that might once have been a letter. No one knows, not even the paper. The road is little used, but those who pass by it pass by in a hurry. Carts, solitary travelers, monks with their eyes downcast. No one notices a nail buried in the ground. You are invisible. You are scenery, until the rain comes. Not that gentle rain that seems like an apology from the sky. No, it's an honest rain, the kind that hits with pleasure and makes even crows seek shelter. It washes the road, the land, the plans, and you too. The water flows in crooked paths, forming small makeshift streams. You are slowly displaced, pulled by the lazy force of the current. You begin to slide again, and slide, until, in a moment of pure poetic irony, you enter under a fence. Not a Viking fence or anything ceremonial, just an old wooden fence delimiting some property. But there in that corner, leaning against the mud and covered by tall grass, you remain for many months. The seasons pass. Summer brings shy sun and curious insects. Autumn covers everything with dry leaves and promises of hibernation. Winter arrives with a layer of snow as soft as it is treacherous, and you carry on, not complaining, not asking, just existing until spring comes, and with it, a shovel. A child is digging, not out of necessity, but out of boredom. He wants to find old things, as he calls himself, treasures, dragon bones, magical amulets. And you, for some unfathomable reason, show up at the dig. She picks you up with her dirt-stained fingertips, spins you around, smiles, wow, a nail from another time. You notice the difference. She doesn't say old. She says from another time. It's a nuance, but an important one. To her, you're not disposable. You're a relic. Hand relics deserve care. She takes you home. She washes you with warm water and an old toothbrush. Then she lays you out to dry on a piece of cloth with cat designs on it. You shine, discreetly, but you shine. That night, you sleep on her nightstand. Next to a seashell, a purple crystal, a star-shaped brooch, and a storybook. The next day, she puts you in a little box. She decorates the lid with stickers and writes your name on it. Or rather, the name she gave you, Nailgar, the traveling nail. You now have a name, officially, and with that a new role. For weeks she carries you around in her jacket pocket. She talks to you when she's alone. She introduces you to the family dog, who, by the way, seems to respect your importance with a silent lick. She shows you drawings. She explains how a bicycle works, and one day she takes you to school. In history class, the teacher asks each student to bring a special object and tell something about it. Most of them bring toys, pictures, funny rocks. She brings you and tell your story. This is Nailgar. He was on a Viking ship. Then he fell into the sea. Then he traveled in the stomach of a fish. Then he lived with a sculptor, and also with a horse. Then he ended up in a museum. But he escaped. Now he's with me. The class laughs, but listens. The teacher smiles. Very creative, Lena. I like the name. You, of course, remain silent. But something in that room changes. For a moment, All eyes are on you. The nail. The traveler. The unlikely. In the afternoon, Lena lovingly returns you to the box. She closes it with a purple elastic band and keeps you inside a drawer where her biggest secrets are: a diary, a little bag with colorful buttons, and a letter that she never had the courage to deliver. And so for a long time you rest. No escape, no flying, no getting lost. For the first time perhaps you have met someone who has decided that you have done enough. The drawer is dark, padded with folded papers and childish promises. You are there among memories under construction, kept as if you were a jewel. The box where Lena keeps you is small, made of light wood smelling of crayons and cheap perfume. The one she took from her mother without knowing it, and uses only on occasions she herself invents. The days pass slowly but peacefully. The routine. At home is predictable. Hurried footsteps in the morning, voices crossed during lunch, the silence of the afternoon that is only broken when Lena returns from school with her backpack, almost dragging on the floor. At night, she opens the drawer, checks if you're there. Sometimes she just looks at you. Other times she holds you for a few minutes, as if your crooked ends were a thread of remembrance. She doesn't say much, but you realize that to her you're no longer just a nail. You're company. And then, as always happens in its long life as a legless object, things change. Lena is growing, and with growth comes other boxes, other priorities. The secret box becomes a notebook drawer, then memory box, and then a package. At 12 years old, she packs all her childhood favorites into a larger box, with a heavy lid and a purple tape on it. The box goes up to the attic. The attic is quiet, full of peaceful shadows and old smells. You are placed there, in the left corner next to a punctured ball, a teddy bear with one ear sewn on, and a hardcover book that no one remembers buying. Time there dissolves, months, years. The roof creaks, the wind blows, the seasons change like clothes on a sleeping body. You, locked in your box, hear the leaks during the winter and the sound of wasps during the summer. But no one opens you. Historians still debate whether certain attics hold a kind of magic, not the kind that lights candles with a thought, but the kind that freezes objects into tiny pieces of the past. If that's true, then you're in one of the most magical attics in the world. Until one day, decades later, the house is sold. Lena, now an adult, returns to pack her things. The furniture goes. The curtains too. Books, pictures, cracked cups. Everything has a destination, except what's in the attic. She climbs with slower steps. Her eyes search for what was once hers. Her hands touch nameless objects as if trying to remember a forgotten language. And then she finds the box. She opens it slowly. She recognizes the teddy bear, the book, and finally, you. A smile appears. Not wide, not theatrical, but genuine. She holds you as she did when you were a child. She turns you between her fingers, the tip still crooked, the body still cold. "You're still here," she says softly. And then, in an impulse that she herself can't explain, she decides, you're going with her. You are taken to a new home, modern, bright, with walls full of minimalist paintings and sockets where candlesticks used to be. She places you on a shelf, along with travel stones, mementos from other phases of life, and a small pot with succulents. There you are seen every day, not by crowds, not as an artifact, but as a presence, a personal story, a link to a girl who was once a child, who found you in a puddle and decided you had a soul. And then, during a particularly nostalgic winter afternoon, Lena receives a visit. A child enters, small, with curious eyes, restless hands. It's your daughter. She points to the objects on the shelf. "Mommy, what's that over there?" Lena smiles. She takes you out of your place. She holds you in the palm of her hand like a precious secret, and she answers, "That one, that's Nailgar, a traveling Viking nail. He's seen the whole world." The girl's eyes widen. "That's a lie." "It's true," says Lena, "but he only tells the story to those who truly believe it." The child holds you reverently, and the wheel turns again. The story, as always, begins again. Now you rest on a small blue felt pillow, on a childish shelf decorated with brightly covered books, rag dolls and a moon-shaped nightlight. Lena's daughter has a special way of looking at things, as if each object holds a key to some secret hidden deep beneath the surface of the world. She visits you every day. "Hi, Nailgar," she says, always like that, as if you were an old friend. She tells you about school, about her friends, about a girl who stole her favorite pencil, and about a frog that almost got into the classroom. You, of course, listen, and you remain still. But this child doesn't mind silence. She believes, and that's all you need. One afternoon, she decides you need a real home, not a box or a shelf, a real home. So, out of cardboard, glue, and colorful cutouts, she builds you a little hut. It has windows, a glittery roof, and a sign out front. Nailgar's hut, for important travelers only. You are carefully placed inside, lying on a small piece of fabric she calls a rug. At night, she positions the hut near the head of the bed and says goodnight as if you were the guardian of sleep. The days go by sweetly. One day she sneaks you into school. She says it's just for today, just to show the teacher. You stay in your pencil case, among chewed-up pencils and an eraser that used to be a rabbit. During class, she puts you on the table and explains to the whole class, this is Nailgar. He's a nail, but not just any nail. He's lived on a Viking ship, swam with fish, sat on a throne, and got stuck in a horse's mouth. The children laugh, but listen. One of them asks, "But is he magical?" She thinks for a second, then she says, "I don't know, but he's been through so much, maybe he is." And for the first time, you become a playground legend. Over the next few weeks, children ask to see you. Some want to touch you, others ask you to help them with tests. One girl ties a red ribbon around you and says, "This way he'll remember me." You, as always, remain composed. One night at home, the girl puts you back in the cardboard hut. But there is something different about silence, a tone of farewell that hangs in the air, even if no one says anything. She grew up, a little more, and now other things are starting to take up space. New friends, cell phones, movies that don't have dragons, and stories that don't need magic nails anymore. And then, as your story always does, there is a new cycle. She decides to return you to Earth. You're a traveler, she says, and travelers shouldn't be trapped forever on. A cold morning, she takes you to the backyard. She digs a small hole near a tree, a quiet place with shade, tall grass, and the constant sound of birds that seem to laugh at everything. She places you there, wrapped in a piece of fabric embroidered with little stars. You're going to see the world underground now, she says, smiling, and covers you with soft earth. You don't see it, but you feel it. The roots of the tree soon reach out. Life underground is silent but rich. Ants pass by, worms slither by, and the tree, old and calm, shares its breath with the whole world. You are now part of it. Historians don't discuss what happens to nails buried as children's offerings, but perhaps they should. Because here, far from shop windows, far from seas and horses and museums, you find a form of peace you've never known. You're not just a nail anymore. You are the link between generations. A story that traveled in the pockets, eyes and imagination of those who dared to believe that even the smallest of objects can carry the greatest of destinies. And one day, not today, not tomorrow, someone will dig nearby, find you, lift you from the earth with dirty fingers and doubtful eyes, and he will ask, "How did this get here?" And the story, as always, will begin again. Time passes differently when you're underground. You don't count the days as you used to. Now you feel the world in slow, deep impulses. The chill that sinks deep into the ground, the vibration of roots growing, the rustle of leaves high above you that you don't see but recognize by the muffled sound that comes in waves. You are there, quiet but not inactive. The earth changes you. It softens your edges, oxidizes your surface, transforms you into something new, not less you, but more. Part of the world. Insects pass by you without noticing you. Earthworms slither by with professional indifference. Small seeds sprout near where you rest, and one of them, a shy blue flower, decides to grow next to you. It climbs delicately, as if using you for support. For years, this flower appears every spring, sometimes twice, in a particularly wet summer, up to 4. People pass by the garden and say, "These flowers only grow in this little corner. It's funny, isn't it?" And you smile silently inside. Not out of pride, you've outgrown that phase, but out of recognition. You are now an invisible part of the scenery. Lena, now an adult with grey hair that shines in the sun, still visits the backyard. Sometimes with a cup of tea, sometimes just with a book. She sits under the tree and watches the wind play with the leaves. Some afternoons, she talks to herself, and on one of them, she says, "I hope you're okay down there, Nailgar." She laughs at herself, but she repeats, "Thank you for everything." And go away. You could have ended it there. And it would have been a beautiful ending, but as has already become clear, you are a nail with a vocation for continuity. A new resident buys the house, a garden restorer. He decides to replant the tree, not by uprooting it, of course, but by carefully removing the soil around it to treat it with nutrients. He digs carefully, using modern tools, mobile greenhouses, labeled buckets, and then, between a handful of earth and a thick root, he finds you. He holds you between his fingers. He brushes away the dirt with a soft brush. He examines you with the trained eyes of someone who has seen 1,000 soulless objects, and yet he insists on searching. This isn't common. He takes you inside. He washes you gently, and like any self-respecting, curious person, he begins to investigate. Days later, he is armed with a microscope, a jeweler's loupe, and a stack of books on ancient tools. He compares, measures, researches. He even writes an email to a university, attaching photos with dramatic lighting. Historians still debate whether certain small objects, when rediscovered with enough context, can change larger narratives. They may not change empires, but they can change the way we look at details. And you are definitely a detail with a trajectory. The restorer decides to donate you to a new exhibition, Unexplained Objects of Ancient Everyday Life. You are cleaned, labeled, photographed. The form reads, "The exhibition tours small museums throughout Scandinavia. You travel carefully packed, as if you were fragile, which is curious, considering you've already faced the sea, the stomach of a codfish and a horse with chewing problems." Each stop at the exhibition is accompanied by panels with curiosities, audios with calm narrations, and a special section called Things with History. You're always the last in line. The nail, the detail, the end of the line. But it's where people spend the most time, maybe because your sign is honest. That nail didn't build any church. He didn't win any battles. It did not belong to kings. But he survived. And for some reason, it's still here. People take pictures with you. Some leave notes on the wall next to the window. My grandfather was a carpenter. I think he would have liked Nailgar. It reminded me of my childhood. Thank you for this story. If even that nail could go this far, maybe I can too. You, of course, don't answer, but it's there. Seeing, feeling. Historians. On the team are trying to trace its origins. They send samples for analysis. The composition of the iron suggests a 9th century alloy, but the signs of wear do not match any known pattern. There is marine oxidation, fire marks, blade scratches, an impossible mix. Maybe it's a hoax, someone says, or maybe it's exactly what it seems. They return you to the display case with more respect now, a different look, as if even without answers there was something that didn't need to be explained, until one day the exhibition ends. You return to the storage room of a larger museum, archived, catalogued, in a numbered cloth envelope with a barcode and a small label. And there again you rest. Only this time everything is different. You are not forgotten, you are on hold. And one day a student enters the collection. He is tall, clumsy, with huge glasses and an exaggerated passion for things that others ignore. He is doing a project on small objects that carry big stories. A teacher recommends that he research items Saru 2243R. He opens the envelope and finds you. "Do you have a name yet?" he asks, chuckling to himself. He reads the file. He raises his eyebrows. "Nailgar. Of course I do." And so, like so many other times, it all starts again. He takes you to the lab, scans your shape in 3D, creates a digital reconstruction, publishes an article, "The Silent Life of an Object That Never Asked to Be Important." The text goes viral. People from all over the world comment. Some laugh, others get emotional, and many ask, "Is this nail real?" Yes, very real. You get a bronze replica displayed in the museum's entrance hall. Beneath it, a new plaque. Sometimes the world doesn't need heroes. You just need something that has remained. You are no longer underground, nor at the bottom of a drawer, nor hidden among tools. You are in plain sight, and yet you remain humble, because you know your journey was never about glory. It was about persistence, about what happens when someone, or something, continues, even when there seems to be nothing left. And then a girl enters the museum. She has curious eyes, small hands, and asks the guide, "Why did they make a statue out of a nail?" The guide smiles, "Because he didn't." "Give up." The girl looks, thinks, and answers, "I'm not going either." You say nothing, but there in that promise whispered by a visitor with colorful shoes and a heart full of stories yet to be lived, you find your reason for existing. Again, the museum closes. The lights go out one by one, in sequence, like stars, respectfully retiring from the sky. The sound of the last visitor still echoes softly through the corridors, slow footsteps, rhythmic breathing, perhaps a whispered phrase before leaving. The security guard says goodnight without knowing that he is also speaking to you. You remain there, firm, silent. Over time, you have learned that you don't have to move to be on a journey. Outside, the night envelops everything in a thick, peaceful blanket. The wind blows through the highest windows, carrying with it the distant scent of wet wood, of freshly cut grass, of the world that never stopped turning. Even when you did, there, in your glass dome, you listen to this silence with the same reverence as always, a silence full of history made not of absence but of subtle presence. It is the silence of places that harbor memories, of pauses that hold meaning, of rest after a long road. You have been so many things: memory, tool, relic, toy, mystery, metaphor. Now, it's just a peaceful nail. The shine of the window reflects what you are and what you once were. With each visitor who is moved, with each child who smiles, you continue, not because of the iron, but because of the story. You no longer need to be found. You have already been recognized, and with that, for the first time since the hold of that ship, you rest completely. The shop window blinks with the last light of day. Night falls, and there, with the world outside slowly sleeping, you dream. Not with where you've been, but with whoever carried you and with what is yet to come.